I never expected my son's wedding day to turn into the most terrifying moment of my life. The ceremony had been beautiful: white roses, soft music, sunlight filtering through stained glass windows. My son, Daniel, stood at the altar with his bride, Elise, smiling like I hadn't seen him smile in years. And my granddaughter, 6-year-old Lily, was twirling in her pale yellow dress, her curls bouncing like excited springs. After the ceremony, guests moved into the reception hall. Laughter filled the room, champagne flutes clinked, the band tuned their instruments. I was standing near the cake table, watching Lily draw pictures on the corner of a napkin. She looked up at me, but something in her expression felt wrong. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Then she approached me quietly, tugging gently on my shawl. "Grandma," she whispered, barely audible over the music, "look under the table." Her voice trembled. Thinking she wanted to show me a drawing or a fallen toy, I knelt down. But the moment I lifted the draped tablecloth, a chill shot down my spine. A small brown bottle was tucked against the table leg. A needle lay beside it. Not a toy, not something a child should ever be near. My heart hammered. I recognized the label, an EpiPen vial of epinephrine, but not from any pharmacy. It was a homemade injection kit. Someone had tampered with it. I turned back to Lily, trying to keep my voice calm. "Sweetheart, who put this here?" Her eyes filled with tears. She pointed across the room, toward Elise's brother, Matthew, standing stiffly by the bar. He had a drink in one hand and kept glancing in our direction, his jaw tight. "He told me it was medicine for Daddy," Lily whispered. "He said to bring it to him when the cake comes, but it scared me. I didn't like it." I felt all the blood drain from my face. Daniel had a severe heart condition, something only close family knew. He carried medication, yes, but not this, not anything like this. I slipped the vial and needle into my purse and marched straight to the wedding coordinator, who was also a close friend. Within minutes, security quietly closed off the exits. The police, who happened to be directing traffic outside, were called in. Matthew tried to leave when he noticed the commotion, panicked, sweating. His attempt to escape only confirmed what we feared. The officers apprehended him before he reached the door. As it turned out, he had been struggling with gambling debt and believed that if something happened to Daniel, his sister would inherit money that could help him pay it off. A twisted, desperate logic. The medicine he told Lily to deliver would have triggered a heart attack. Later that night, after statements were taken and guests had been informed gently of the situation, Daniel pulled Lily into his arms and held her for a long time. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. "You saved me, sweetheart," he whispered into her hair. "You saved Daddy." I sat at the corner table, watching them, overwhelmed by the fragile, powerful truth of how a child's instinct and courage saved a life. Lily curled up beside me afterward, exhausted, her head on my lap. "Grandma," she murmured sleepily, "I didn't like how he looked at Daddy. It felt bad." I stroked her hair, tears in my eyes. "You listened to your heart," I told her, "and you were brave. So, so brave." The wedding may have carried a shadow, but it also revealed something extraordinary. Sometimes heroes come in the smallest forms, wearing yellow dresses and whispering warnings no one else would think to hear. The story centers on a grandmother's perspective during a day she thought would be nothing but joyful. She had watched her son grow through hardships and triumphs, and seeing him stand at the altar with the woman he loved filled her with warmth and pride. The reception hall glowed with soft lights and music floated through the air as guests settled into easy conversation. She kept an eye on her granddaughter Lily, a bright-spirited child who often sensed things others missed. Lily's little yellow dress swayed as she moved around the room, drawing pictures and watching the adults with her quiet, thoughtful eyes. While the grandmother chatted with a cousin, she felt a gentle tug on her shawl. Lily stood there, her face pale and her voice barely louder than a breath, as she whispered for her to look under the table. At first, the grandmother thought Lily was showing her a toy or a lost crayon, but the shaking in the child's hands made her kneel more carefully. Lifting the edge of the tablecloth, she saw a small bottle and a needle tucked beside the leg of the table. It was not a toy, and certainly not something that belonged at a wedding. Her heart pounded as she recognized that the vial contained epinephrine, but it was not from a pharmacy, and the needle was clearly not part of any medical kit she had seen before. Trying to stay calm, she asked Lily who had put it there. The child's eyes welled with tears as she pointed toward Elisa's brother Matthew, who stood stiffly near the bar, his gaze darting toward them again and again. Lily explained that he told her it was medicine for her father and that she should give it to him when the cake was served, but something about it had frightened her. The grandmother knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Her son had a heart condition, a fact known only to close family, and whatever was in that vial was not meant to help him. She quietly slipped the items into her purse, then went directly to the wedding coordinator, who quickly alerted security. Within minutes, the exits were discreetly monitored, and 2 officers who had been helping outside were brought in. Matthew tried to leave as soon as he sensed the growing tension, but he was stopped before he reached the door. The truth soon emerged. He was in deep financial trouble and had convinced himself that if something happened to Daniel, his sister would inherit enough money to bail him out. His plan had been to use Lily, an innocent, trusting child, to deliver the harmful injection. When Daniel learned what had happened, he held Lily tightly, tears slipping down his face. He told her she had saved his life, and the grandmother watched them, feeling both shaken and grateful. Later, when Lily rested her head on her lap, she told her that she simply knew something felt wrong. The grandmother stroked her hair and told her she was brave. In that moment, she realized how extraordinary it was that a whisper from a small child had prevented a tragedy. A whisper from her granddaughter leads to the discovery of a hidden vial and needle, and that single fragile moment becomes the turning point in a day that was meant to be filled only with joy and celebration. The grandmother had been watching the reception unfold with a sense of deep peace as laughter drifted across the hall and the band prepared to play the first dance. She believed everything was perfect. Her son had finally found happiness, and her small granddaughter Lily seemed to float through the room in her pale yellow dress like a ray of light. Yet, beneath that bright exterior, the child had sensed something dark. Lily approached her with timid steps, her eyes wide and uneasy. She tugged at her sleeve with a trembling hand and whispered the simple request to look under the table. The grandmother assumed the child had dropped a toy or wanted to show her a drawing, but there was a note of fear in Lily's voice that made her heart tighten. She knelt carefully, lifted the edge of the tablecloth, and felt an icy shock rush through her. Tucked against the table leg where no one would casually glance, lay a vial and a thin metal needle placed with deliberate intent. The sight felt wrong in a way that made the hairs on her neck rise. Weddings brought flowers, music, and joy, but not hidden medical objects that seemed out of place and unsettling. She stared at the items, unsure for a moment what she was looking at. Then recognition struck. The vial was labeled, yet crudely so, as if someone had pulled it from a private kit rather than a proper pharmacy. It was the type of substance that could affect a fragile heart. Her mind immediately jumped to her son and his known heart condition, something he managed carefully and quietly. Nothing about this secret vial felt safe or legitimate. She swallowed hard and asked Lily softly who had placed it there. The child hesitated, tears filling her eyes, before she pointed toward a man standing stiffly near the bar. It was Matthew, the brother of the bride. He watched the room with a tense expression that now seemed far more sinister than nervousness. Lily explained in a quivering voice that he told her it was medicine for her father and that she should bring it to him once the cake was served. She had not understood why, but she had frightened her. That fear had saved them. The grandmother understood instantly that the discovery was not an accident. Someone had tried to use a child to deliver a dangerous substance to an unsuspecting man. Her pulse throbbed with urgency as she quietly gathered the vial and needle into her purse and moved swiftly to alert the wedding coordinator. Security closed in as discreetly as possible. Officers entered the hall. Matthew realized something was wrong and moved toward the exit, but he was stopped before he could escape. In the end, the whispered warning from Lily revealed a plan driven by desperation and selfish motives. A hidden threat that could have stolen a life was uncovered because one small girl trusted her instincts and chose to speak. The grandmother held her granddaughter close, knowing that her courage had turned a quiet whisper into a moment of profound rescue. The groom has a known heart condition, and this truth sits quietly beneath the joyful surface of the wedding day, even as music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses fill the reception hall. He has managed this condition for years, learning what stresses to avoid, what medications to take, and how to steady himself when the world feels just a little too fast for his heartbeat. Only close family and a few trusted friends know about it because he never wanted pity to overshadow his accomplishments or define how others looked at him. His mother, the grandmother in the story, has lived through every anxious moment with him, from late-night hospital visits to long, quiet talks on the couch where she reassured him that life would still offer him joy and purpose despite the limitations he sometimes faced. On his wedding day, she watches him with a mixture of pride and protective instinct. He looks strong, smiling wide as he dances and shakes hands and thanks everyone who came. But she knows his stamina is not endless. She notices when he takes deeper breaths between conversations and when he rests a hand on his chest for just a moment before straightening again. She never hovers because he hates that, but she stays close enough to watch for signs he might need a break. His bride, Elise, knows too, of course, and throughout the evening she gives him gentle glances, subtle check-ins, making sure he is steady. Their love has grown through honesty and understanding, and she has promised to help him care for his health as faithfully as he cares for her happiness. They have a quiet plan for emergencies, a small kit of approved medication and instructions just in case something unexpected happens. Everything has been prepared responsibly. Nothing was supposed to be out of place. Nothing was supposed to threaten him today. That is why when the grandmother discovers the strange vial under the table, her blood runs cold. She knows instantly that anything unapproved could be dangerous to her son, especially something someone else might try to give him under the guise of help. His heart condition means even a small dose of the wrong substance could trigger a catastrophic reaction. A single moment of carelessness or misplaced trust could steal him away before anyone understood what had happened. And the thought of losing him on the very day meant to mark the beginning of the happiest chapter of his life feels unbearable. She thinks back to the years of learning which medications were safe, which were risky, how certain triggers could send his heartbeat spiraling. She remembers the doctors explaining how fragile the balance could be. Because of all this, she recognizes instantly that the vial under the table is not something meant for good. Its presence is not harmless or accidental. It is a threat specifically dangerous because of the heart condition only a small circle of people even know about. Her protective instinct sharpens with fierce clarity. She cannot allow anything near him that she cannot verify. She cannot let a stranger's intention or a family member's secret motives endanger the life she has fought so hard to help him protect. His condition, once a quiet personal challenge, becomes the urgent reason she acts without hesitation, alerting security and preventing the danger from reaching him. In that moment, the heart condition that once frightened him becomes the reason his mother recognizes the threat just in time, and the reason her granddaughter's whisper becomes the key to saving his life. He was manipulated by a trusted family member, and that truth carries a heavy weight because betrayal does not always come from enemies or strangers. Sometimes it hides in familiar smiles and warm greetings. In this case, the family member was someone everyone believed they understood, someone who had shared meals, holidays, stories, and laughter with them for years. His presence at the wedding felt expected, natural, and even comforting because family is supposed to be a circle of safety, especially on a day celebrating love and new beginnings. No one imagined that beneath his polite conversations and well-pressed suit, he carried intentions shaped by desperation, resentment, and a misguided belief that he could solve his problems at the expense of another person's life. He had watched the groom live with compassion, stability, and the love of parents who supported him through every challenge. Deep down, he nursed jealousy that had gone unnoticed by most, including the groom who had always treated him with respect and warmth. Over time, this jealousy mixed with his own private troubles and hardened into a twisted conclusion that if he removed the groom from the picture, his sister and her new family would inherit enough resources to rescue him from the mess he had created for himself. It was a selfish calculation, lacking empathy and shaped by fear and greed. To carry out his plan, he approached the youngest and most trusting member of the family, a child who saw him as an uncle figure, someone safe. He crouched down to her level and told her he had medicine that would help her father, and that she would be doing something important and grown up by delivering it at the right moment. His tone was gentle and his expression calm to prevent her from suspecting anything. Children often believe what adults tell them, especially adults they know, and she wanted to be helpful. But something in his eyes or his voice must have troubled her because she didn't take his instruction lightly. She felt a kind of quiet fear she couldn't put into words. Still, the manipulation worked enough that she accepted the vial and hid it under the table just as he told her, waiting for the moment he said would come. He believed she would obey without question and that no one would think twice of a child handing her father something at a joyful celebration. His plan relied on innocence and trust, the very qualities that make children vulnerable, and his willingness to exploit those qualities revealed how deeply his judgment had deteriorated. What he did not expect was the child's sensitivity to danger or her strong intuition that something was wrong. Despite her age, she recognized that the object frightened her, and she turned to the one person she trusted most, her grandmother. That whisper of uncertainty cracked open the lie he had built and revealed the truth beneath it. His manipulation was not clever or invisible, it was fragile. It depended on silence and the hope that no one would notice. But the moment the grandmother lifted the tablecloth and saw the vial and needle, the entire deception collapsed. The betrayal became visible, undeniable, and shocking because it came not from an outsider, but from someone who had always been welcomed as family. Her quick thinking and the child's intuition prevent a potential tragedy, and this truth becomes clearer with every moment that passes after the discovery. It begins not with panic, but with a calm alertness rooted in years of protective instinct. The grandmother has lived long enough to recognize danger even when it hides beneath a celebration, and her mind sharpens the instant she sees the vial and needle. Yet her reaction is not frantic. She knows that fear clouds judgment, so she steadies her breath and focuses on what needs to be done. She slips the objects into her purse, not drawing attention, and keeps her face composed so as not to frighten Lily further. She understands that secrecy is safer right now because the person responsible might still be watching. Her thoughts move quickly through every scenario. Her son's heart condition means even a wrong sip of drink could be dangerous, so the idea of someone planning to give him an unknown injection fills her with a cold urgency. She cannot allow him to be anywhere near the threat. The reception is full of people laughing and dancing, unaware of the danger, so she knows she must navigate carefully to avoid causing chaos.
She guides Lily to sit with a trusted relative, then approaches the wedding coordinator with a calm but firm voice, explaining that something is wrong and they need help quietly. She shows the vial only long enough for the coordinator to understand the seriousness of the situation. Within minutes, security is alerted and discreet measures are put in place. Her action alone sets the protection into motion, but it never would have happened without the child's intuition. Lily's instinct is remarkable because she is so young, yet she sensed something unsettling about the situation. She couldn't explain it in adult words, but she felt it strongly. Children often notice tones of voice, small hesitations, or strange expressions that adults ignore, and Lily recognized something was off when Matthew spoke to her. Even though he used gentle words and acted friendly, she picked up on the wrongness beneath his smile. She felt scared, and that fear told her not to follow through. Instead of obeying, she chose to tell her grandmother, the one person she trusted completely. This combination of intuition and trust is what breaks the danger apart. If Lily had delivered the vial as instructed, the outcome could have been devastating. If the grandmother had dismissed her whisper as a child's imagination, the threat would have remained hidden until it was too late. Both of them acted at exactly the right moment in exactly the right way. The grandmother's ability to stay calm allowed her to move through the wedding without drawing attention and to involve the authorities before anyone else was endangered. Together, they acted a quiet chain of protection. A child listened to her instincts, a grandmother trusted her. Both responded not with fear, but with clarity. The groom continued smiling, unaware that the worst moment of his life had almost occurred just a few feet away. Their decisions formed a shield around him, invisible but powerful. And because of that shield, the tragedy never happened.
Security and the police intervene and reveal the true motive behind the attempted harm, and this moment becomes the unraveling point where hidden tension turns into undeniable truth. It begins quietly because the grandmother has already warned the wedding coordinator, who understands immediately that something is terribly wrong. The coordinator moves with care, speaking to security personnel stationed near the doors and asking them to remain calm while preparing for a controlled response. No one wants panic to spread through the reception. The guests continue dancing, talking, and enjoying their meals, unaware that a dangerous situation is unfolding just beneath the surface of their celebration. Two officers who had been assisting outside enter the hall through a side door. They are used to handling delicate situations during large events, so they read the room quickly. The grandmother meets them with steady resolve, handing over the vial and needle while explaining exactly what her granddaughter told her. The officers study the items and exchange a look that confirms her fears. Something about the material seems unauthorized and potentially harmful. They know that whatever is happening cannot be dismissed. The officers begin watching the room carefully, noting who seems tense or overly alert. Their eyes land on Matthew almost immediately. He stands stiffly by the bar, gripping his drink too tightly and glancing repeatedly toward the table where Lily once sat. His posture is rigid, and he shifts his weight nervously as if waiting for something to happen. When he notices the officers near the grandmother, his expression changes from forced calm to unmistakable fear. The officers pick up on the shift instantly. Security discreetly blocks the main exits. One officer approaches Matthew calmly, asking him to step aside for a brief conversation. He tries to laugh it off, claiming he needs to use the restroom, but his voice wavers. He attempts to move around the officer, but two more step into his path. His desperation becomes obvious as he insists he has done nothing wrong, yet his eyes betray panic. The wedding guests nearby start to notice the tension, and the music softens as the band senses something happening. Matthew finally tries to push past the officers, heading toward the door, but he is stopped firmly. His drink spills across the floor, and he mutters incoherent excuses that do nothing to help him. The officers escort him to a quieter room away from the crowd. There, they question him about the vial. At first, he denies everything, but as more details are stated aloud, his resistance cracks.
He begins to confess in fragments, revealing that he is drowning in debt far beyond what anyone imagined. He believed that if Daniel suffered a fatal medical incident, his sister would inherit money from insurance and family assets, and she would be able to help him out of the trouble he created. The officers listen with controlled professionalism, but the weight of his intentions is unmistakable. He planned to use a child to carry out a life-threatening act against someone who trusted him. His motive is not justifiable desperation, but a cold calculation shaped by greed and fear. When the truth is brought to the grandmother, she feels a mix of relief and heartbreak. Relief that the danger is gone, and heartbreak that it came from someone invited to celebrate love and new beginnings. The intervention by security and police turns what could have been a devastating tragedy into a controlled and safe resolution. Their calm response exposes the motive that had been hidden behind a polite face and ensures that justice will follow. The story ends with an emotional moment showing the granddaughter as the unexpected hero who saved her father's life, and this closing truth becomes the heart of everything that happened that day. Once the danger is removed and Matthew is taken away, the reception slowly settles back to a fragile calm, though the atmosphere has changed. The music feels softer, the conversations quieter, as if everyone senses that something important has shifted, even if they don't know the details. The grandmother finally allows herself to breathe fully, and the weight of what almost happened begins to sink in. Her hands tremble slightly, not from fear anymore, but from the overwhelming relief that her son is safe. Daniel has not yet learned everything. He only knows that security intervened and that something concerning was found. When the officers finish speaking with him, his face goes pale and his breath hitches in shock. The grandmother watches as he absorbs the truth that someone he trusted was prepared to harm him and that the person who saved him was a small child who noticed what no adult did. She sees the realization move through him like a wave, and he immediately begins searching for Lily. Lily is seated at a quiet corner table, her legs swinging gently as she waits for her grandmother. She is tired from the long day and from the emotions she cannot fully understand. When Daniel approaches, she looks up at him with wide eyes, unsure if she did something wrong or something right. Before she can speak, he kneels down and pulls her into his arms, holding her with a fierce tenderness that surprises her. She wraps her tiny arms around his neck, and he whispers that she saved his life, that she is his brave girl, and that he loves her more than she could ever imagine. Lily does not fully grasp the magnitude of his words, but she feels the emotion in his voice, and it makes her eyes fill with tears. She had been scared earlier, confused by the strange man's instructions, and the feeling in her stomach that something was wrong. She had whispered to her grandmother because she trusted her and because she didn't want her dad to be hurt. Now, in his arms, she feels the relief of knowing she did the right thing, even if she cannot put the reason into words. The grandmother watches them and her heart swells with pride. She knows that the courage of a child often goes unnoticed in a world that moves too fast. But today, that courage changed everything. The image of her son clinging to his daughter will remain etched in her memory as the moment love overpowered danger. It is a reminder that sometimes protection comes from the smallest voice in the room, a whisper so soft that most would overlook it, yet powerful enough to stop a tragedy. As the night comes to a close, Daniel dances with Lily in his arms, gently swaying to the slow rhythm of the music. Guests look on with warm smiles, sensing the sweetness of the moment without needing to know its full story. The grandmother places her hand over her heart, filled with gratitude. The wedding day may have carried a shadow, but it also revealed a hero dressed in yellow with bright eyes and a brave whisper. The conclusion to this entire story rests on a truth that echoes far beyond the walls of that wedding hall. What began as a celebration of love and family transformed almost invisibly into a test of intuition, courage, and the strength that binds people together even when danger hides under gentle music and soft lights. The day revealed that protection does not always come from the strongest or the most experienced. Sometimes it comes from someone small, someone overlooked, someone whose whisper carries more weight than any warning shouted across a room. The entire event reminds us that even in moments meant to be joyful, life can shift unexpectedly, and the people we trust most may carry intentions that betray everything we thought we knew. Yet it also shows how hope can emerge from the unlikeliest places. The grandmother's role becomes one of tremendous significance, not because she acted loudly or dramatically, but because she listened. She listened to a whisper most adults might have brushed aside, and she allowed instinct rather than doubt to guide her. Her ability to stay calm under pressure, to act swiftly and quietly, prevented chaos and preserved safety. She stood at the intersection of danger and protection, using her life experience to recognize the seriousness of the discovery that lay hidden under the table. Without her steady presence, the truth might have remained hidden long enough for harm to reach her son. In many ways, her strength and her love formed the wall that shielded the family when they were closest to disaster. But at the center of the conclusion is Lily, whose courage becomes the emotional core of the story. Children rarely understand the deeper layers of danger, yet they feel discomfort in ways adults sometimes forget. Lily sensed something wrong not through reasoning or logic, but through instinct, a natural warning that something in Matthew's voice or expression did not match the safety she expected from family. She did not have the words for it, but she recognized fear and confusion inside her own heart. Instead of staying silent, she chose trust. She went to the one person she knew she could rely on, her grandmother, and that single decision changed the course of the entire evening. Her father's life was saved because she spoke up. A child's whisper became louder than the intentions of someone who had allowed desperation to cloud morality. It is a reminder that even the smallest voices deserve to be heard, and that intuition should never be dismissed simply because it comes from someone young. The family now stands on the other side of an event that could have ended in unimaginable loss. Instead, it concludes with gratitude, resilience, and a deeper appreciation for the bonds that held them together. The wedding, once shadowed by danger, becomes a symbol of survival and the extraordinary bravery found in ordinary moments. The memory of Lily's whisper, the grandmother's calm action, and the father's tearful embrace will live in their hearts forever as proof that love, trust, and intuition can save lives even when the threat is hidden beneath the surface.